Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Digital Drivers 2021 in association with our media partners, Today's Traveler. We are happy to be back with yet another insightful session. And this time, we are quite literally here to make some noise, the digital noise. Today, we will engage in a conversation with panelists who are diligent marketing professionals, liking, sharing, and posting their expertise within their organizations to realize how important it has become to be digitally updated in our workspaces. We are very happy to have our first all-women's panel here with us, and we look forward to our learnings from this session with you. I would request my panelists to quickly introduce themselves. In no particular order, Rubani, let's start with you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rubani. I am from the batch of 2008 at IHM. I am currently a cluster director of marketing with the Marriott International Group, and I'm really ecstatic to be a part of this really exclusive panel.
Thank you, Rubani. Ananya.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ananya Mukherjee. I'm the Director of PR and Marketing at the Taj Palace, New Delhi. I'm from the class of 2009 from IHM Aurangabad. Extremely excited to be here. Coincidentally, today, 1st of July is also the date in 2005 when I stepped into Aurangabad at IHM-A. So really excited for our discussions today.
Wonderful, Ananya. Thank you. I'm sure most of the alumni are listening to this and are remembering their times at IHM-A. Thank you, Ananya. Smita.
Hi, everyone. My name is Smita, and I'm from the class of 2010. After IHM, I worked for about 4 years with Marriott International, and that's when I got introduced to the field of marketing. And for the past 4 years now, I have been working for a marketing technology company called Jivox, based out of Bangalore. And I'm really excited to be here, particularly because I know all of the panelists, the other panelists, on this call from way back in IHM.
Thank you, Smita. Can we hear from you, Kanupriya?
Hi, everybody. Firstly, thank you, Smita, for having me here. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I am from the 2008-2012 IHM Aurangabad batch, and it's a pleasure being here. And currently, I head the marketing and communications at Hyatt Regency, Mumbai. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Kanupriya. And ladies, welcome to this webinar. I am so happy to share this platform with you. And like I said, most of our alumni from IHM-A will remember each one of you and are proud that they see you here with us. Without wasting much of our time, let's dig deeper. Today, hospitality is being transformed into a digital technology-enabled industry, making its way into every aspect of the customer journey. And I'm sure all of us agree to that. So my question is to you, Smita. As we dig into the real digital drivers here, what skills do hospitality marketers need today to successfully adapt to a digital-first strategy? And there's more. What are some of those emerging technologies, marketing technologies that hospitality industry can take advantage of?
Sure, that's a great question, Smita, and it's so nice to have another Smita on the call. So to tackle, the question about the skills that hospitality marketers need today, well, I think these are more of mindsets rather than skills. Because I don't think just because it's digital, the traditional style of marketing, that segmentation, targeting, positioning is no longer valid. But I think in the digital world, what we need, first of all, is an experimental mindset. And what I mean by that is that there is no one way of doing digital marketing. There are a number of channels, digital channels out there. There's so many different ways of running campaigns. So really to have sort of like a mind of a scientist, to be continuously experimenting with new channels, new ways of doing things is very, very useful in the world of digital. The second skill I would say that we as marketers need today is that we need to get comfortable with using data and technology. For the longest of time, marketing was considered to be more for the creative, right-brained people. But now with the advent of technology and data, we really need to get comfortable with using it. With data, we can get so much more insight about our customers, and technology can make our day-to-day life so much easier. So that's the second aspect. And the third skill, I think, is really to have a spirit of collaboration, which means we really can't work in silos anymore. We need to work with other teams, other departments, and that's where ideas really come forth. That's where innovative ideas come from. And what's happening with technology and all of this, trend of remote workspaces is that technology is bridging the gap between marketing and different departments like IT or food and beverage. So there's really a lot of scope for collaboration. Moving on to the second part of the question, which was about emerging technologies. Well, to be honest, there's so many new technologies that are emerging every day. It's kind of become like a very messy space, but I'll just share a few key buckets of technologies which I think are going to help marketers in the long run and which even hospitality can take advantage of. So the first one among these are media technologies. And these are essentially platforms or technologies that can help marketers take advantage of all the numerous channels we have out there. I mean, if you think about it, within social, it's no longer just Facebook, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's Twitter, and now there's Clubhouse. So there are technologies that can help marketers get onto all of these platforms and be omni-channel, and also be able to connect the different dots of the customer's journey, which is very useful to understand all the different touch points and how customers are interacting with them. The second bucket of technology, I think, is got to do with data. And data really is the currency of digital marketing. We can't run away from it, and we shouldn't. And there's a lot of technology out there that can help us get insights from all of our data online, from different campaigns, and even connect that to offline data. And data can really help marketers also make sense of all that is happening behind the scenes so that they better know how to target customers better, with channels to invest in, and so on. And I think the third group of technologies has to do with automation. And this is a very vast term. It includes a lot of things, but as marketers, sometimes we have to do certain tasks that seem very dreary, that seem very repetitive, and technology can help automate a lot of that. A really good example of this, which I think a lot of us may be familiar with, is a technology like Canva. Now, if you think about it, what Canva does is that it replaces the need for either having a graphic designer on board all the time, or for us ourselves to have graphic design knowledge, which means that if we want to churn out those social media posts every day, we can use something like Canva that makes it so much more easier. Another great example of this is automation tools like Marketo and HubSpot, which are absolutely brilliant for loyalty marketing because they can keep track of your database of your loyal customers. It can help you automate emails to them and also take care of how they are interacting with you online. So there are many different channels, but I think, these technologies can essentially help hospitality marketers move into the digital age more easily.
So I agree with you, Smita. An experimental mindset and getting comfortable with using data and technology is imperative, and this must reflect in our customer interactions. In fact, I agree on the Canva bit also because it's a very easy to use tool and something that all of us as digital marketers use for the ease of everyday posting. That brings me to an important aspect, Kanupriya. Something that I teach my students at honors level, and I hope they are taking note of this. How have you leveraged digital marketing to create traction from the emerging consumer behavior of Gen Z? And what can we learn from the trend in the hospitality world?
So, Smita, I think you're doing a great job. And this is a very important question because we need to understand about Gen Z. This is the now consumer. And if I can just start by saying that if millennials have learned to adapt to digital marketing from traditional marketing, Gen Z has been born into this digital booming era. The consumer behavior is different from millennials because the way they shop, view money, and interact with brands is quite different. They have information at their fingertips in this mobile age, and they can greatly influence where their family dines, shops, or even goes on vacations. So, understanding the different generations and how to captivate them is both fun and challenging at the same time for marketers and brands. So let me just say that, first of all, the biggest difference lies in the way they spend money in comparison to millennials. This generation is quite pragmatic and focuses on saving money because it has witnessed economic pressure during their childhood years. Hence, the content that showcases your brand in a non salesy but more value oriented manner with plentiful offers works well with them. The other noteworthy thing is understanding their personality. This generation prefers brands that are authentic, hence realistic, and less Photoshop content will generate more traction.
Yeah.
Also, you need to understand that these brands, these Gen Z generation does not like labels at all. So they do not like to be defined by anyone else but by themselves. So the key marketing approach lies in celebrating the individual and not bounding them to a specific image. Also, lastly, it is their belief of playing their part in improving the world. So brands that are ethical and transparent score big with Gen Z. Now, as my co-panelist Smita talked about the different platforms which are there, the latest one being Clubhouse, even platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok. This is Generation Z's complete sea. They're like fish to water when it comes to this.
Agree.
So if you want your brand to get noticed by them, you have to be on these platforms and create content keeping their behavior in mind. Because you need to use the new update that these platforms roll out and use them on a regular basis. So the latest one is Insta Reels. I think everybody from Gen Z knows how to make, create, and leverage Insta Reels. So if brands start marketing their products on this kind of an update, they are going to get more eyeballs from Gen Z. Now, to answer to your second part of the question, as a marketing professional in the hospitality world, I feel that creating value based content that encourages engagement works best with them because it increases organic growth and increases brand visibility. Let me give you an example. Instead of just putting out a post talking about your specialty restaurant to attract customers, why don't you ask the chef to make a recipe, to make a dish, and why don't you take a video, simple video recording of it and put it up as a post? This way, the signature recipe of the restaurant is up there. It can be prepared at home. In the caption, give the details of the recipe. What this does, it creates a two-way communication dialogue and engages the followers with an attainable and a shareable content. The other thing which plays a key role in digital marketing and hospitality is influencer marketing because it helps in reaching larger and different segments of audiences. Now, traditionally, the PR only comprised of journalists and publication houses, but now it has expanded to encompass both bloggers and influencers. So why did this change happen? Is because influencers offer their real-time hotel experience to their followers via Insta stories, their posts, and whatever they post about. If they're coming to your hotel and they post about the staycation or they post about their dining experience or the brunch on Sunday, they are actually giving that experience to their audience, thereby broadening the hotel's audience reach and enhancing the brand perception. Lastly, what I feel that the hotel should actually leverage on is topical marketing because it helps in getting that extra visibility and putting the spotlight back on your brand when it is done right. I'll give you an example of a post that I did. So you have these topical trending memes, one of them was 10 years later trend. So what I did was I actually took the hotel facade image and showcased it both on left and on right with a simple caption saying the warmth in our hospitality is still the same. Now, this post was a trending topic post with the hashtag. It resonated quite well organically. It gave me a good amount of reach with my own followers and also people who actually searched on that hashtag. And it led to positive engagement and brand visibility for the hotel. So, Smita, these are the things. If you actually understand the behavior of Gen Z, you can take digital marketing and leverage this to get maximum out of this consumer base.
Definitely, Kanupriya, thank you for that. I I like the anecdote. Gen Z is like fish to water when it comes to platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, and they expect more innovation at a rapid pace. Now, if you want your brand to get noticed by them, you have to be on these platforms. So I'm sure, Ananya, you agree to this, but according to you, let's hear from you. In a post pandemic world, what percentage of PR will be digital as compared to traditional PR models used in hospitality?
Thank you, Smita. It's a very, very valid question and very relevant if you ask me. The pandemic has actually sort of made us push the envelope over the last 15 months as brands, whether brands that are have been in existence for years or even brands that are slowly sort of emerging out of the pandemic. We've had to create campaigns. We've had to create sort of repurpose our goals, realign our objectives over the last 15 months, and that has of course led to a complete transformation in the way we communicate. Now, if you look at the last couple of years, the whole concept of public relations, of PR, has absolutely evolved. And if you ask me to be more specific, the scope has widened, and it has quite in a very interesting manner embraced the digital side of things. So if you look at traditional PR particularly, it's been centuries old. The first newspaper was possibly published several years ago, centuries ago. And if you look at it today, it is here to stay, and it will be here to stay even in the times to come. And that's something that I truly believe in. It actually brings out the entire the entire communication that a certain it brings out the entire news piece, the entire communication of a certain initiative in its own interesting manner. And I definitely feel traditional PR is here to stay. However, digital PR and, when you're looking at digital PR, whether it's through media-led platforms, you're talking about social media, influencer collaborations, like Kanupriya was talking about, whether you're looking at different digital channels, it will definitely play a pivotal role in our campaigns going forward. And I kind of believe that this is definitely due to the overall real-timeness, the innate ingenuity, the creativity, the subtlety that digital PR brings along with itself. And I think that is what has definitely fueled its growth during the pandemic. From a brand perspective, it also enables us to reach out to a larger, a wider, and a more diversified audience. And it's very interesting to sort of, get a detailed understanding of the reach and analytics of a certain campaign through a digital PR exercise, which perhaps might not be possible through a traditional PR exercise.
Yeah.
So I do believe it will be something like a 60-40 approach. But if you ask me what is critical, whether it's digital PR or traditional PR, one needs to actually customize. One needs to customize it. One needs to tailor make it as per one's objective. What's that real objective behind your campaign? Do you want to drive positioning? Do you want to drive the positioning of a legacy brand that has been in existence for years? Would you want to drive a certain positive brand message? Are you a new brand trying to build visibility and awareness? You need to really dovetail it into towards your objectives and very clearly chart it out. And at the end of the day, it's not like a one size fits all sort of an approach. You need to completely customize it towards the needs and overall goals of your organization.
Agreed. So analytics play an important role. You only know you are headed in the right direction if you've been able to procure appropriate data on it. So I'll take a pause here and I'll request one of my colleagues to have a look at the chat box and tell me if there are some questions that we have been receiving. I can see plenty. Anything that one of our panelists can answer. So we have a question here from Karan Kapoor, and please feel free to jump in, any one of you. So, according to the panelists, what should be the top digital marketing priorities for independent hotel owners in the current crisis? Any one of you, I mean, who would like to take it?
I'm happy to take that actually, Karan.
Thank you, Rubani.
So I do feel that, post-pandemic, there's going to be a bit of a shift, a seismic shift actually in customer engagement trends. And one of them, we might undermine it, but is going to be about exploring passion and an empathetic approach to the way we do business. And I feel like there are certain leaders in the industry, like say, for example, a Zomato, that have channeled a partner kitchen capacity to make food available for, marginalized operations and things like that. So I feel like that is something hotels should sort of get into as a space. It's important to be transparent. It's important to be socially conscious in a very, very digital world in order to deliver a message which eventually the customers want to hear. And it needs to be honest, especially in the current scenario. I also feel that connected and conversational marketing is important. We've seen that in the pandemic years actually, where chatbots have sort of come to the forefront. It's able to customize conversations far better than rather than kind of having to talk on the phone, things like that. But I feel like chatbots is the future. That is something I think hotel operational owners can look at investing in. I also feel that visual and experiential is going to come to the forefront with things like augmented reality filters. This will revolutionize the way we sort of consume and create content in this particular decade. And lastly, I think from everybody's conversations and input so far, data continues to remain king. I think we need to respect the fact that people have privacy. They need to get messages which are not intrusive. So as long as we have permission from a lot of the database or the customers per se, we should be able to market better to them, knowing what these insights are.
Sure. Thank you, Rubani. I hope that answers your question, Karan. Rubani, I'd like you to stay on a little longer and tell me, how has the nature of purchasing patterns changed in a post-pandemic environment, and how effectively did you manage to forecast the shift?
So very pertinent question actually posed, Smita, thank you. I think the pandemic has been a hugely introspective period with an intense sort of desire to connect deeply with customers, whether it's customer B2C, B2B, all of that. So consumers have been, either anxious or panic buying, while there has been a certain segment of them which are indifferent and they continue business as usual. I feel like organizations have had to sort of develop customized and personalized strategies, as mentioned by a lot of my colleagues on the panel here. In the form of sprint plans, actually, the days of one size fits all sort of is over. I don't think any of us believe in that anymore with what we've been through in this pandemic. I feel like essentials have taken up precedence and health continues to remain a big priority for everybody. Guests are pretty vocal about asking relevant questions. So this is all in the pre-arrival or the pre-booking process, right? That is the period where we are getting questions on sanitization and health, sustainability and sourcing, local and immunity boosting choices, to name a few. Consumers are connected to their communities these days, and that is exactly why they've embraced technology. So if you see that's the way people are downloading apps also and consuming online content, whether it's across entertainment, news, healthcare, education. I think we all have more apps than we used to earlier, whether it's a Spotify, InShots, even dating apps like Bumble for some. So I feel like the underlying need continues to remain the same. Digital technology only changes the way this happens. And hence we have to focus on a digital versus traditional approach in order to engage better with our customers. I also feel the whole aspect of building a virtual workforce culture has come into play in these 2 years, something we never thought would be possible. And most employees have reacted in a broadly positive way, although some have tended to miss social contact. So I think as employers or as companies, it's important to join the dots to see how to fill that gap. And I think in real time, some kind of feedback that we've received is vouching for the fact that hotels or companies rather like to provide virtual rewards to employees, whether that's food deliveries, staycations for the future, or just occasion hampers celebrating, departmental wins, birthdays, anniversaries, all of that. I think that's something that's kept people, virtually applauded. That's kind of kept them motivated to continue doing their jobs as well. That is one of the internal employee trends that we've seen. Spending restrictions, I feel, has also really boosted savings for a lot of people. So even though there is a dip in the way, where the budgets or whether it's salary cuts and things like that, we feel that brands have amped up messaging. I mean, we in particular have also amped up our messaging as well as our targeting in order to remain salient. Because I feel like the brands that actually went quiet during the pandemic are not really top of the mind anymore. We feel like the confinement actually led to an increase in the number of eyeballs, right? Whether it was through engaging sessions on IG Live or just content that kind of resonated with people, whether it was motivational content during this entire period. I feel like it kind of stayed with them. And people are returning back to these brands with a mode of sort of purchasing now rather than just browsing or shopping. So yeah, I think that's what we realized once people came back into the market. They came back with lists and they knew exactly what they wanted. They had shopped. They had taken the time to kind of look at what competitors were doing. And I think these patterns that were observed through all of our various social media campaigns, ad targeting, boosting, retargeting, various formats of ads. This gave us the data to actually sort of get into a recovery phase of our basic operations, which we are in at the moment. And I think we've actually now been able to curate some more relevant offerings, especially in the hospitality sector, like, say, contact-free delivery, whether it's wellness-centered staycations, health-focused menus, or even virtual culinary journeys.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Rubani. I think what you've just said makes sense. Organizations have developed customized and personalized marketing strategies for each. So the days of one size fits all marketing is over. So essentials have taken precedence and health remains a top priority for all. That just goes without saying. I'm very happy to see a question that has come here from Dr. Jairam. So that comes from your principal, lady. So tell me who's going to be the one who's going to answer this. So he says, good evening, ladies. What is the percent cost of conversion that really drives business, as many hotel products or services remain unutilized, pushing RevPARs and RevPACs down all over? So who would like to take this question?
So, Smita, I'll just take on one part of the question.
Sure.
So, very, very relevant question, Dr. Jairam. The one thing that actually, the pandemic really taught us, and I had mentioned this when I'd spoken earlier, was the fact that we've all learned how to push the envelope and come up with interesting, novel and relevant campaigns. Now, yes, you are right, with RevPARs and RevPACs going down all over, it has also sort of pushed us to come up with different campaigns to bring them back, perhaps not to normal, but to what you possibly want to call the new normal today. We have sort of looked at different distribution channels. We are working with a lot of, as brands, we're working with a whole lot of distribution channels to ensure that we maximize on volumes wherever possible. We're looking at different parallel streams of revenue. Rubani just touched upon things like food delivery, which has got on the fancy of most hospitality brands in our country. So we've gone beyond the traditional framework of hospitality of just selling rooms, banquets, and restaurants, so as to speak. We've gone completely beyond the traditional segments of, corporate MICE, because these have completely sort of dried up during the course of the last couple of months. Your staycations, for example, have become the mainstay in many markets across the country. So I think, yes, the entire the amount that we have really spent over the last couple of months is extremely, extremely high. But what is critical is that we've really sort of diversified our product portfolios as hospitality brands completely to ensure that we definitely look at different streams of revenue. It has made us a lot more adaptable. It has made us a lot more agile. And today we cater to a range of demographics. We can understand consumer spends, consumer propensities to spend a lot better.
So
yeah, I'd just like to, sorry. I just wanted to add a small line to that, Smita. I think the secret sauce, honestly, is to be as strategic as possible. Honestly, I think we're living in an era where we can't really make quarterly plans anymore. We're looking at like 4-week plans out, especially to our digital strategy. And with reduced budgets, I think as marketing leaders, it's important to be holistic and flexible and agile, like the way Ananya actually mentioned right now. But also very important to pay attention to who is actually traveling. Is it the corporates, is it families, or is it corporates that are coming back with their families, for instance? So I think source markets, what our traditional source markets were, are now becoming our drive markets, or really what are these drivers that are bringing people to come here. And I think our channel distribution strategy has to be the right combination of OTA investment as well. I don't think that's something we can ignore anymore. Social media ads, as well as email marketing campaigns to our current databases that we probably want to increase by tenfold.
Sure. Thank you, Rubani. I hope that answers your question, Dr. Jairam. My question now is to Smita, because it makes me wonder. With many hospitality services being delivered online, what do we need to do to learn the new rules of customer engagement online?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've heard so many of the other panelists already touch upon a lot about this. I think Kanupriya spoke about authenticity. Ananya has spoken about customization. Rubani spoke about relevance. All of these are very, very valid points, and I think over and above that, the umbrella term that I would say it captures all of this is empathy, and I think Rubani, you had touched upon this really well. Essentially, what has happened during COVID-19 is that we're living in a very unpredictable world now. And if you remember last year, one day we had a lockdown announced, and then the next day it was lifted up, and then it was back again. So there was so much confusion going on in the market. And in such times, brands really need to be very, very empathetic about how they are communicating with customers. They can't be tone deaf completely to what's happening. And that plays a huge role in how brands are perceived. Also, what has parallelly happened during the pandemic is online channels have really boomed. And as Ananya was mentioning, there's so many other parallel streams of revenue that are coming in. So it's not like you're not interacting with your customers at all. You're just using a lot of other different channels. And these channels are always on, in a sense, because you're always online in digital marketing. So going back to the principle of empathy, like I mentioned earlier, brands cannot be tone deaf. And this means that in everything that they do online, they have to remain agile. Just to give you an example of a client, one of our clients is a really big hospitality company. And what happened last year is when the lockdown was announced, so they had been running all of these campaigns, promoting their properties and destinations. Now, obviously, in a lockdown, nobody is traveling. So literally overnight, or even in lesser amount of time than that, they had to pause all of their campaigns. And that kind of agility actually comes with digital. So that's a big advantage to us. And using this agility, we can then fine tune our messaging to be more empathetic to customers. And another aspect of this is the whole idea of being relevant, which, I think everybody on the panel spoke about this. Authenticity, relevance, customization, that's really very important. I was reading a study by Salesforce that said that more than 52% of consumers online now expect brands to personalize offers to them. And this is all over the world. So it's not specific to only particular regions. Now, if you think about customization, what we really like about it is the fact that somebody, a brand out there is taking the trouble to understand what our preferences are. If you think about how you shop on Amazon and why you like it, besides the convenience, is the fact that it recommends all these products that you can purchase, and these are fine-tuned to your browsing history or your purchase history, and looks completely different from somebody else's recommendations. So personalization is really the name of the game now. And just going back to the example of the company that I was giving earlier, what they did was they launched a staycation campaign, like many other hotel brands around the world. But instead of blasting a single message that said, come and book hotels, come and stay at one of our properties, get a flat 10% off. That's a very generic message. What they did instead was in their ads, they featured a series of properties that was located close to the individual user. So, for example, if I'm sitting here in Bangalore, instead of seeing a generic message saying get a flat 10% off at our properties, what I would see instead is a set of 2 or 3 different properties that are in close proximity to where I am right now in Bangalore within the city, and what are the different offers that they are running that I can take advantage of. And that's really being relevant, and that's the whole idea of personalizing your communication to customers. So the key thing, I think, as we go online and we step our foot into all of these new digital channels, is to keep in mind that we need to be empathetic, and we can do that by remaining agile and relevant to our customers.
I agree, Smita. Personalization is important to catch the pulse of your guest. It is this empathy that will create a better customer experience, thereby ensuring a repeat customer. So maybe Kanupriya, you can come in here and tell us what are the distinctions in the communication style that you use with the millennials as compared to the traditional formal style used in hospitality, and what do we need to do to change our communication style?
So, Smita, I think this is a very relevant question because each generation requires a different communication style. Something which differs millennials from their predecessors is that they like a dialogue of communication. They are not passive consumers. Hence, the modern style of two-way communication connects better with them. So, online communication like social media, blog sites, review platforms, hotel websites, these are the mediums through which they largely make their purchasing decisions. Also, one has to remember that this generation thrives on experiential service. They need to know that their money is not only buying the product, which was fine in the older generation, but also an experience. So, how can a brand showcase that? A brand, if it is hotels, we can put up short video snippets of an immersive dining or their stay or wellness or even event spaces, and give this generation a preview of a digital experience of what is in store before they make a purchase. The other thing which hotels can also do is make and identify these spots in their hotel space which are Instagrammable. Maybe have like 5 or 6 spots which are Instagrammable, because these spots have a big hit and they have a potential to reach thousands or even millions of followers in an instant by popping up in their feed. Now, in regards to your second question, the traditional formal style, which used to work in hospitality, is no longer the norm. I mean, maybe it will work in only select hotels that millennials will be flexible. Maybe if it is backed by rich and long history, example can be a standalone heritage hotel. But even there, adapting to the latest format of content dissemination, such as videos rather than just static content, has become the need of the hour, as well as having a strong online presence where information is available. It can be your hotel website, it can be a third party OTA channel where queries and bookings can be done so that this segment is not lost out on. The other form of communication in which traditional communication was, like in terms of paper based proposals or brochure, is slowly ebbing out of this generation because they are much more online and they want their brands to offer maximum convenience, preferably instant and fast paced at the lowest cost. That is the key. Maximum convenience at the lowest cost and instant. So, if I can give an example of one of the hotel brands that did a beautiful thing to give you, a sense of what I'm talking about. Every hotel has a concierge. What this hotel did, this is Four Seasons, they actually made their concierge available on WhatsApp. So it was pretty easy and convenient for the guests to address any queries that they may have in real time. And it was a big hit. So, to sum it up, this generation thrives on experiential service, prefers a two-way dialogue of communication, and makes a decision online. So one has to be there and makes it instantly. So this is the way you can actually capture this segment.
So that's a perfect response, Kanupriya. Millennials prefer dialogue communication. They are not passive consumers. Hence, our modern style has to be a two-way communication which connects better with them. At this point, I'd like to look at the chat box and see if I have a question for any one of you. I have a question from Mr. Tiku. He wants to know if, good evening, G, wanted to ask that amongst the currently available social media platforms, which is the one that adds most value to your business? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blogs, etc. So, and also in continuation, or TripAdvisor. So, who would like to take this up and answer, Mr. Tiku?
Smita, if I can take this question up.
Yes, please, Kanupriya, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Deku. Hope you're fine. Now, to answer your question, each brand will have to first define what it wants. Because all the platforms that you mentioned are going to give you a different result. Instagram is basically for visibility and also for shopping. Facebook has recently introduced their market, but Facebook is largely inorganic. So you will have to invest a lot of money to push out your ads. Now, in your case, if you were to maybe start a YouTube channel, in the longer run, that would give you more advantage because after a certain number of video views, YouTube will actually start paying you. So not only are you getting the business from the viewers who will come and maybe visit your business, but if the video content is great, the video star itself paying back. Twitter is more or less from an informational point of view, and blogs, if you are doing affiliate marketing, it will help you in your business. TripAdvisor, if you are a hotel and you thrive on reviews, that works for you. So it depends largely upon the kind of business that you're in and how you can make these platforms work for you and not vice versa. And focus on like 2 to 3 platforms rather than spreading yourself thin. Don't be weak on all platforms. Be strong in 2 to 3 platforms that will actually give you the ROI.
Thank you, Kanupriya. I hope
Smita,
that answers your question. Yes.
Smita, I just wanted to add, to what Kanupriya said.
Yes, Smita.
Also, when we think about evaluating platforms, now I think, almost every platform offers very similar offerings in terms of advertising. They all have these amazing ad formats. So I think a better way of thinking sometimes can be to see what ad format is also working for you. Kanupriya mentioned YouTube, and the reason why YouTube works so well is because video is really working well, which is why you have platforms like Instagram coming up with video formats. And, there are all sorts of stats out there, but I read one that said, almost 50% of consumers today want to interact on video content. So just to add to what Kanupriya said, that video is really big, and looking at how you can leverage video across these different platforms can really help too.
Thank you, Smita. Would someone like to add more? Or I think pretty much summed up whatever has been asked, and I think I'd like to move on to Ananya here, who's also the PR expert. I'd like to hear your take on what is the level of increased interactivity that you have with guests on social media as compared to traditional channels.
So let's look at it this way. Today, when you need to look up someone, in addition to doing, a check through a search engine, you may also want to run, an Instagram or a Facebook search. And that, if you ask me, sort of summarizes the situation. The pandemic has actually necessitated the world to go digital. So social media particularly has become a lifeline. And it has, there's a good part to social media and there's a bad part to social media, but it has become a lifeline. If we look at it from a brand perspective, it's very simple, it's very easy, it's very quick, and I think most importantly, it's extremely engaging. The conversation runs both ways. So if you speak something, you're encouraging your consumer also to speak, as a part of the entire conversation. So it does not run one way. On the other hand, if you're looking at traditional, at traditional channels, and let's take, for example, a print platform, whether it's a magazine, a nice glossy magazine, or a beautifully done long form based like a newspaper, the conversation is by and large one way. I mean, there are ways of encouraging two-way conversation, but more often than not, the conversation is one way. So it just leaves very little scope for you to really interact with your audience. And that's where social wins hands down. And I think if you look at it from the other side, from a consumer also, social has given the consumers a voice. It's given consumers a platform to share their complaints and compliments. So, and as brands, we have to, of course, embrace both. So that particularly has definitely caught on the fancy of consumers as well. It's absolutely real time. So, nowadays a consumer possibly would want to go on to, Instagram and DM a certain business if he or she would like, would like a redressal to a certain query. That actually brings the brand way more closer to the consumer rather than a traditional platform. Back then, if a certain consumer had a grievance, he had to write and fill up an entire form, look at different ways of reaching out to the brand. Today it's literally a DM away on Instagram. The other aspect also is that once you're giving consumers a voice, you've also given them a tool to sort of showcase themselves on your platform. So user generated content is something that we as marketers, we absolutely love, because it gives us a way to showcase our brand through the eyes of a consumer. It's very unfiltered, it's raw, it's unfiltered, and it gives a sort of a real-time perspective of what our brand actually feels like. So that, if you ask me, has definitely fueled the growth of social media. And thanks to this, the levels of interactivity over the last several years has grown manifold. Instagram is definitely not what it was, say, 5 years back. This massive spurt in growth has, in fact, happened over the last 3 to 4 years. And we really don't know, where we will be, say, 5 years from now. There was a time when IGTVs became very, very popular. People wanted to see long format videos. But then slowly something like Reels came up, and it's a part of your main navigation panel on Instagram, because it's fun to watch, it's simple, interesting, snackable content. By doing something like a remix on Reels, you're actually allowing the consumer to participate in your content. So again, like I was saying, it's about two-way conversation. So with this entire diverse product portfolio that a platform like Instagram has, then Smita was talking about Clubhouse, which began sometime in Feb, and because audio-based platforms grew during the course of the pandemic, social media marketing and its different ways and means will definitely be here to stay. Now, how we embrace it as a part of our marketing and PR strategy is up to us as brands, and I think we definitely must, because it's so topical. We definitely must embrace it to like the best of our advantage.
Yeah. So I hear you, Ananya, and I agree. Yes, social media marketing and its different ways and means is today the mainstay of any hospitality brand's PR and marketing strategy. So, Rubani, do you think, based on the activity taking place on your website as well as online channels, how did you manage to change the nature of the products and services?
So, Smita, I think without a doubt, consumer behavior has really changed across all dimensions, right? Whether it's category consumption, that is whether they're booking a staycation or they're just coming to dine or they're just looking at a spa ritual or whatever. Channel selection, are they booking direct or are they shopping and browsing through OTAs or just various channels? Shopper trip frequency, which means how long are they really like staying on your channel? Are they returning on your channel because they find your content interesting enough? Brand preference, of course. I think people have come to now like, love, or hate certain brands, and as well as media consumption. All of these patterns, I think, are changing, are constantly, seismically changing for us. And these shifts I think combined along with the economic recovery is something that we need to keep in mind while we're planning our own commercial strategies. I think that's what we've done internally when we looked in. With stay-at-home orders coming through, consumers are spending way more time watching TV, also utilizing social media, consuming it. And I feel like that's actually really affected traditional high-impact advertising opportunities. And this is not just in India, but globally, right? For instance, it was NBA season, whether it's the Olympics or even IPL on our home turf. Events like these have gotten postponed, purely because we want people to be able to consume these in both formats. And I think as a result, marketers have sort of indicated that they will significantly increase their advertising spend on traditional channels. But at the same time, digital deployment, like social media streaming, video content, as the girls have mentioned, especially short and long, and messaging has sort of really seen a broadly positive ROI, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I do feel like today's environment has sort of asked us to think like entrepreneurs, because the customer expectations are constantly changing. We need to sort of have in head that it's vital to have a respond, renew, and a reset plan per se for each of these arenas. And that I think is only possible if we dig deep into our own brand proof points in order to sort of cultivate a 4 to 6 week sprint plan. So I think in order to do so, it's important to periodically revamp your marketing plan. That's very important. Also to look at invigorating your digital strategy basis on whatever demand you're getting in your particular market. So it's important to read these details, especially when you're targeting and retargeting, and also then navigate your price and your promotions in order to be effectively executed in these markets. So your spend has to be forecasting. I feel like forecasting has also sort of come to the forefront. I think previously, at least as a marketer myself, I don't think I laid too much focus on it, but I've just sort of understood the importance of this particular exercise, financial forecast, in this pandemic, because how else are you supposed to gather data about, maybe 2 years in the future? I think we need to start thinking 2023 as well. And we need to also understand whether all of these activities and campaigns that we're doing are benefiting from real-time testing and measurement or not. So that's really where analytics comes into play, reputation management, and these sort of tools come into play. And I feel like we can augment all of our existing capabilities if we also partner with, client retailers, or sort of do a sort of customer collaboration, or sort of joint planning, whether it's delivery, whether it's click-to-collect services, because a lot of hotels, for instance, have let go of their transportation services. So these sort of factors aggregate and only help you to boost revenue in the long run. And I think a lot of us have now experimented with that in a successful manner. And lastly, I feel like weekly reviews of all of these e-commerce promotions is extremely important, because we need to check whether the demand is stable. I feel like things like images, tagging has really come into play. I feel like SEO has come into the forefront in a more vital manner. We've been able to determine, the channels which are giving us maximum traction because of that, and hence identified ways of reaching these effectively. So, for instance, while a website, especially our booking website, whether it's a Marriott.com, has remained a mothership of bookings, or that's pretty much where you want your visitors to drop, I think we've also had to maintain a parallel strategy flow with travel partners. So OTAs, like I mentioned earlier, or even aggregators. Actually, there's a numerous number of travel aggregators like Trivago, LBB, who are generating aspirational content where people don't really come and check a rate or look at the photos, but they also tell you, things that you can do in a particular location, with a few destination highlights that you can utilize while you're planning a staycation of any sort. And lastly, I think amplification through influencers, key opinion leaders. I don't think we call them celebrities anymore. We try and look at people in spheres that really matter, that our Gen Z is really listening to out there, and we try and utilize them, in the best way possible as a customer collaboration to really voice our content out. At the same time, giving it their sense of unique messaging as well. So I just feel like our most exciting digital, the key takeaway I feel is to have a balanced and an omni-channel marketing strategy rather. That is something which we need to sort of accelerate into our digital activities as well, rather than putting all our eggs in one basket at this point in time. And also try and focus on some of the, maybe just 2 or 3 platforms that you feel can get you traction at a particular point in time. Because I feel like if you spread yourself too thin, you really may not get the results that you intended for. Like Kanupriya mentioned, you need to know your objective really clearly. And I think that's what's worked for us in a post-pandemic recovery phase, at least. I also feel there is a new rise in search behavior. So, what this means for content specifically is that there are changes in language structures. I think Smita would be an expert in something like this, considering you're with digital tech. But basically, the way written content is helping you to ensure better voice search results, because a lot of the Gen Z is using voice search these days, and I think that is something that we need to keep in mind when we're also creating content. The way images and products are featured, with Facebook Shop and Instagram Shop coming into play. It's also the angles in which you shoot an image. Some people want to kind of see, more panoramic view of a certain product or a service as well. So I think as content creators, that's something we've kept in mind to jump into recovery. And I also feel, and that's also, I think, helping with our social indexing, and our traditional algorithm is changing, and that is something we need to keep tune of as well. Be able to track it, sense a pulse over there. And I think lastly, I think TikTok has just changed the algorithm globally for everybody. Yeah. So that is something we as marketers have sort of stayed abreast with. It's affected all of the newer channels as well. I would think that kind of sums it up for me.
Sure. So guest experience is what defines hospitality. Hygiene, cleanliness, and guest safety, I reckon, is really the crux. So I'm going to take one more question, and I see ample number of questions in the chat box today, and I'm very happy to answer those. I'll take one right now, and I'll take one post the last session. I can see a question from Anuradha Kote. How are the digital platforms being used to promote safety when brand hotels are being used as quarantine facilities? Who would like to take this question? Can we have the question on the screen for a longer time, please?
So, Smita, I'd like to take this question.
Please go ahead.
It's very interesting what you have asked, Anuradha, and thank you so much. Now, I think it just boils down to one thing that I'd mentioned earlier, and that's your objective and who you are targeting. Now, when you're looking at, there are hotels that have converted themselves as quarantine facilities. Not exactly, if you ask me, not really out of choice, but it's a part of your, of your sustenance plan during a pandemic when the entire economy has been hit. Now, how you promote your safety and who you promote your safety, your entire safety campaign to is in your hands. So how we are promoting it is it entirely depends on who you're targeting it to. When it comes to creating your entire safety campaign, you layer it with, say a video, you layer it with PR campaigns, with positive PR campaigns. You layer it with people talking about your entire, your entire safety experience through, through a very well weaved, a very well drafted PR story. And while you are running the entire quarantine, while you're running your hotel as a quarantine facility, you need to learn to strike a balance there. You're targeting it to a different sort of an audience altogether. Yes, consumers have possibly been apprehensive in the beginning of the pandemic, but with time they also realize that hotels, you need to learn to trust a brand, and a brand is doing its best as far as safety is concerned. So there's a separate, how do I put it? There's separate brand speak for hotels that have converted themselves into quarantine facilities, and there are hotels that have also come out of it as successfully, and they're running as regular hotels post the first or the second wave. On the other hand, the overall safety philosophy has actually, with time, been that common factor that has weaved every possible campaign. So what began as, two individual campaigns, and it has sort of come together, and the entire concept of safety will definitely be here to stay. So if you ask me, it doesn't really come in the way of each other. You just need to learn to target it to the right audience.
Agreed. I hope that answers your question, Anuradha. I'll just take 2 minutes before I leave the floor open for some more questions. But ladies, a lot of questions are coming your way. I'm sure most of our audience members have been able to relate to 5 key takeaways from a session today. An experimental mindset and technical know-how is a clear winner in the digital game. The real objective behind digital PR is to drive positioning, positive brand messaging, visibility, and awareness. Creating value-based content that encourages engagement works best, thereby leading to organic growth and brand visibility. And let's not forget, one can create relevance through personalization online in order to ensure guest empathy and maintain customer relationships in the long run. That is what hospitality is about. And adapting to the latest formats of content dissemination, such as videos rather than just static content, has become the need of the hour. So these are some of the major key takeaways that I could gather. And now leave the floor open for more questions from the audience members. And I would like to request my colleagues if they could pitch in here if I've missed any question. Um, so I already see a question. I think they were waiting for me to ask. So I see a question from Mr. Harmeet Singh Rathore. He wants to know, what is the ideal way to address negative comments from consumers on digital platforms, considering they tend to go viral in comparison to positive comments?
Smita, if I may take the question from Mr. Amir Singh.
Yes, please go ahead.
So the ideal way of addressing these comments is to actually maintain a positive yet neutral tone and be empathetic towards the complaint or the grievance that might be in that comment, and address it offline so that it does not pave way for trolling or lead to unnecessarily viral comments going up and down on it. It's short, crisp, neutral response that works best, and an empathetic response.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, when back when I was, when the digital hotels were just going and onboarding themselves on the digital platforms, a common attitude was, let's ignore it. But that's the worst thing actually you can do, because that will instigate the person even more to start posting more negative comments. So actually responding, and like Kanupriya put it so beautifully, responding with empathy is important, but do respond, because if you ignore it, that's only going to make things worse for you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that answers your question. May we have the next question, please? We have a question from Ms. Roy. How can young startups with limited resources for marketing initiatives leverage digital platforms to create brand awareness? Who would like to take this question?
I don't think
take the question.
Sorry, I think someone is going.
No, that's fine, Smita. Go ahead.
Okay. Now I was just thinking I could put some thoughts together, and then everybody else could pitch in. So the thing with startups often is that they work with very little budget, and that's it's a situation that sometimes even we face in hotels when they're just starting out. Sorry, could the question be back up on the screen again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Let's have the question back on screen.
Yeah, thank you. Right. So I think one way to look at this is to think about how can you, with limited resources, do more with less. And this whole idea of doing more with less actually is very useful when it comes to technology, because with technology, like I was mentioning earlier, you can automate so many of your day-to-day processes. And literally, there are so many tools coming out every day that can help marketers do some aspect of their job much better. So I think rather than just looking at being present in multiple platforms, I would say look at your internal workflows as well. For example, you have the budget to hire an agency. Sometimes we just don't have that kind of budget when we are just starting out. So then how can you bridge that gap with technology? And that's where things like Canva and then automation tools like HubSpot and things like that come in. So really look at the workflow besides your platforms to see where can you save costs that you would otherwise spend on hiring additional resources to do things for you.
Thank you, Smita. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Roy. Can we have the next question? I'll be able to take two more questions. So Dr. Jairam wants to take a moment to thank all our doctors who have performed. I cannot see this, yeoman's service to humanity on National Doctors Day, as we salute them today. So thank you, Dr. Jairam. I'm sure all of us are indebted to the service they provide. I can see one more question in the chat box from Mr. Umair Ansari. Are virtual digital events long-term or temporary marketing initiatives?
Smita, if I can take this question.
Yes, Kanupriya, please.
So, Mr. Ansari, thank you for the question. Going forward, this is going to be a hybrid of digital and offline events. I think digital has actually bridged the gap between cities, between continents, and between the world. You know, we are truly now a global economy, and one can conduct business sitting from one end of the world. And it is only possible because of online presence and because of the entire scope of digital presence. So moving forward, even if COVID subsides, I think COVID was the catalyst that actually catapulted us from an offline world to an online world. And people have come to realize the convenience with which digital world offers them. And moving forward, your events are going to be combined. It's going to be a hybrid model. That is what I feel. And it is not going to be a temporary marketing initiative. It is here to stay. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Kanupriya. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Ansari. I see another
Mr.
question.
Ansari, sorry, can I just add to Mr. Ansari?
Yes, definitely, Rubani, please.
Okay, Mr. Ansari, there's another thing that I actually read, which is just for employees. While a lot of companies are now open to employees bringing their laptops on work with cloud computed options, I think another thing that they are trying to offer is also environments. So wherein they could possibly, aside from the laptop, they could also have a sort of home network. They could have smart speakers, they could have gaming consoles, things like that, which really personalize and motivate employees as well. That's what I see a lot of companies getting into. And of course, like Kanupriya said, there are hybrid models that are being now adopted by hospitality brands. It is a reality.
Thank you, Rubani. I definitely see it adds a perspective there. I can see one question from Mr. Nilesh Wagmare. Can we have that on screen, please? So Mr. Wagmare wants to know, in these times of contactless check-ins and customization, how are you leading brands creating bespoke, curated, immersive experiences? Thank you. So I'll repeat that. In these times of contactless check-ins and customization, how are your leading brands creating bespoke, curated, immersive experiences?
So I'll take that question, Smita. Nilesh, thank you for the question. Again, very relevant to current times. It's all about creativity. I'll give you an example of what we do at our hotel. So during the course of the pandemic, a lot of people initially were very apprehensive about dining in restaurants with others. And the whole concept of really putting plexiglasses was not really doable in a lot of cases. Certain restaurants had installed plexiglasses, within their spaces, but it wasn't really working out. And we came up with something called dinner dining, where we took small niche venues and converted them into restaurants as absolutely private, intimate dining spaces. So it gives an added layer of safety, comfort, privacy, exclusivity to the consumer. It's completely immersive, completely tailor-made. If, for example, it's a Chinese restaurant that we're looking at as a central theme, we convert a really nice, small, intimate banquet venue designed from the lines of a Chinese restaurant for that particular evening. It comes at a premium, but consumers are also willing to spend that little extra, and you have a wonderful, immersive experience there for you. We also came up with a lot of virtual sessions. So instead of doing master classes in person, we were doing virtual master classes classes, and we combined it with our home delivery service. So while you have a masterclass happening either with a mixologist or with a chef, you're also having the food delivered from our restaurants in the comfort of your home. So that completely makes the entire experience immersive. Sometimes we even sent DIY kits. So you watch and you do simultaneously. You become a part of the process, and it's completely sort of in line with the new normal.
Thank you, Ananya.
Smita, once again, can I add a snippet?
Definitely. We are here. Marketing is all about talking. So I'm very happy that two-way communication is happening here, right here for us. So please go ahead, Rubani.
No, so from an experience point of view, for instance, if I represent a brand that is the Ritz-Carlton, honestly, one of the core sort of pillars of the brand is all about experiences. Now, being a new hotel, we never really had a chance to showcase these experiences because we opened and then 2 months down, the pandemic sort of descended upon us. And I think one of the things that we did do is because we felt that people still needed to see experiences in order to believe them or to make these bookings or staycations or whatever they needed to. So we actually did virtual videos, or rather, I think to begin the booking journey, we actually did a virtual site inspection where we had a team of, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we call the Ritz-Carlton team. We actually have them showcase their areas through a virtual video. And it was a very, very detail-oriented inspection. I think guests more than even like a 360 video tour, it was a great opportunity for them to see, beautiful spaces within the hotel, not only their rooms, but, other affiliated areas where they could host experiences like, say, glamping or, in-suite, kids activities, tents, whatever that was. So that, I think, really, really helped us. We saw a very, very visible boost in our ROI and revenue maximization due to that.
Great. Thank you, Rubani, for that. I'll take the last question for today, as I see that we've overshot the time that we had budgeted for. So can we have the last question, please? So I have this question from Mr. Kavina, and of course it had to come from someone who's speaking with experience. What would be the one advice you would like to give our young learners who aspire to be future leaders in the hospitality industry? So maybe one from each of you, one good word of advice that you'd like to pass on to Gen Next. Could we have the question on the screen for a longer time, please? So that one advice that you would like to give young learners who aspire to be future leaders. Now they see that their alums have done well. They see you here on the platform, and they wonder what life has in store for them, and they're looking at some very shining examples. So what is that learning that you'd like to pass on?
Okay, so I can give this a shot, and I think the answer is within the question itself, in the word learner. I don't think learning ever stops once you step out of college. It's something that should continue. Wherever your life takes you, you need to be driving your career, and the best way to do that is through learning. So just be a constant learner, not just from within your immediate peer network or within the industry, but also look outside the industry, because one thing that's the digital world is bringing to us is that there can be so much of cross collaboration, cross pollination of ideas. So just be constantly learning from other industries as well, especially for marketing. Whoever is interested in marketing, it's really good to get ideas from other industries, because otherwise you tend to be a little bit of an echo chamber and just listening to the same thing over and over again.
Thank you, Smita. That's insightful. Ananya, would you like to? Sorry, Kanupriya, please go ahead.
I think I would just like to add on what Smita very rightly said about learning. I think one needs to be open to change, and one needs to adapt and just flourish like that. I think I can give my own personal example for it. And right from my college days, when I spoke to Dr. Jairam at that time, Mr. Jairam, I told him one day that I want to go into marketing. And at that point of time, there was nobody hiring for marketing. So he said that why don't you give sales a shot first, and then maybe try your hand in marketing. And I did take his advice, and I ran with it for 3 years, exact date as he had mentioned. And the day the third year got over, I switched over from sales to marketing, and I started at the bottom again. I was almost at a managerial position. I started again at an executive level, and it did help, because now as a marketer I understood what was the consumer psyche, because earlier on I was at the other side of the table pitching to the client, and I got to know right down from the grassroots level to a CXO level what are their expectations. I dealt with a variety of companies, from fertilizer to medicine to travel companies, I think everything under the sun which was available in that region. Once I became a marketer, it was so easy for me to make content that would actually resonate. And I knew who would like what. So, as Smita rightly said, learning helped, because that knowledge never went to waste. And that is what I am currently utilizing it. So, be open to change, be like a sponge, and absorb everything, because you never know what will just help you one day.
Great. Thank you so much, Kanupriya. Ananya, would you like to add something here?
So the hospitality industry, I just feel it's extremely unique. It's absolutely like no other, and it requires a lot of metal, a lot of when they say you need to be really passionate about what you do. I think as far as hospitality goes, and whether it you're in an operational role or in a functional role, it doesn't matter. You really need to love your job for you to sustain. Nowadays, there are, of course, lots of avenues. I mean, growth avenues have definitely are a lot better than what they were possibly 10 to 15 years ago. But just taking cue from what Kanupriya also mentioned, adaptability is extremely important. But I think also what is important along with being adaptable is to be very resilient in times. We've last 15 months, 18 months have been extremely challenging on many grounds. Now, for one to sort of, rise above all this, you can only do it if A, you are adaptable, and B, there is that you have that resilience within you to sort of adapt to any form of changes. I remember the first time I stepped into the industry after graduation, I was put into a city that I was not very fond of. I mean, I was stepping into an unknown city for the first time, and I had no idea I would really, I would really say go on for more than a couple of months, but I actually chose to stay on for 3 years. And I mean, it's been now 12 years, but it was fun. So learn to be adaptable and also be
fun,
yes. Yes.
So Rubani, the last word from you, please.
I just mirror everything the girls have said. I just think it's extremely important to embrace change, but when you do, please do it in a very thorough, a very researched manner. That's really where analytics, like I keep saying, always comes into play. Ensure you kind of read all of that data. You, like Smita said, don't just look at yourself or your industry. Please look at other industries as well. There's a lot of learning everywhere. Please reshape whatever you do, whether it's a plan or a marketing plan or a digital strategy. Please reshape that in tune with demand. Very important to stay abreast and stay relevant. Keep doing that. And lastly, please rethink all of your relationships. I feel like our ecosystem has completely changed. When I entered the industry, I mean, honestly, I was a client, and I had agencies that I had to kind of, that were kind of servicing me as an account. But I think all of that has changed. I am now the client. I'm also the agency, and I'm also the executor. So learn how to fit into different shoes. That's from me to you.
Thank you so much, Rubani. And I see still more questions. I'd request the audience members to please type in their questions, and I will still take it and I'll respond back to you. At the moment, we are definitely way ahead of the time we had budgeted. So this brings us to the end of our session this evening. And thank you, panelists, for your valuable time and inputs. Thank you to our audience members for your enthusiastic participation. It was indeed very delightful. We will be back soon with yet another enriching session for you. Till then, stay safe and stay strong.
Thank you.